Nation! You're now listening to the most opinionated, the most exciting, the most son of a Schmidt. You guys actually do something useful here, right? Like, is anything you do even beneficial to someone? Whatever. Now to the show that literally has tens, that's right, tens of followers. The show that brings the Ozone Radio Network to levels of mediocrity that only Michigan fans would know. This is the Sons of Schmidt, starring Mike Meals and Brandon Zimmerman on the Ozone Radio Network.
Welcome back, Buckeye Nation. This is the Sons of Schmidt podcast. As always, on your lovely Thursday afternoon or morning, whatever time it is you're getting this in your ear, I am glad to be joining you. This is Mike Meals from Hayes and Cannon on the ozone.net. Joining me as he does each and every weekend when he's available is my good buddy Brandon Zimmerman, also from Hayes and Cannon. What's going on, Brandon? How you doing, man?
What's up, Michael?
How's everything been for you, brother?
Oh, as you know, it's been a pretty busy couple days for me, but I'm ready to look forward to Penn State. I'm ready for this game. You know I don't really care for Penn State too much.
Yeah, I've made it obvious and clear that I do not like Penn State. I mentioned it in my Hayes, Gaze, and Cannon Fodder article earlier this week. I do not like Penn State at all. So before we get going, we always have to know, because the important question is each and every week, what's in your glass? What are you drinking, man?
So this week, I'm sorry, guys, I got a little lazy. It's been a rough couple of days for me, a lot of traveling, rushing back to Ohio real quick. So I'm going with the old reliable Larceny that I always have laying around. So same thing I did last week. Wasn't able to get to the store and switch it up for y'all.
Hey, I understand that, man. I'm still milking out this bottle of 10-year Eagle Rare from Buffalo Trace. And I'm going to tell you, Brandon, I don't know if you've tried this stuff, but you get a chance and you get a hold of it. It's not too bad as far as price-wise, but it's really good bourbon, by the way, man. So
all bourbon's
you see
good.
It's
bourbon.
Definitely worth picking it up. So, all right, dude. I know everybody's all anxious for Penn State, but before we get going into that, when we come back here in just a brief moment, we're obviously going to take a minute, recap what we saw, liked, disliked, and whatnot from the drudging that Ohio State put on Tulane, at least in the first half, because I'm pretty sure there was only one half of football played on Saturday in Columbus. But so before we get into that, is there anything you want to throw out here to start with, or are you ready to take a pause and roll this thing, man?
Screw you, Penn State. I'm ready to go.
All right. On that note, we'll take a brief reset. We'll come back. We'll start with Penn State or with Tulane, and then we'll go from there. So we'll be right back.
This is the Ozone Radio Network, a Hayes and Cannon production. For the latest episodes of all your favorite podcasts covering Buckeye Nation, look for the Ozone Radio Network on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Speaker. You can also find the latest episodes by clicking on the Hayes and Cannon tab at theozone.net. Once again, here are the Sons of Schmidt.
So, Brandon, I don't know if you know this or not, but there was one half of football played on Saturday. And I say that because I, quite frankly, fast-forwarded through the whole second half. I think I even took a nap at halftime. That game was over quickly. Not that anybody expected the game to really be competitive from the get-go, but before we go into too much, obviously Ohio State defeats Tulane 48-6. You know, one missed extra point from Tulane and 2 field goals, and I would have nailed that score prediction. So I just want to put that out there. But other than that, man, what was your initial takeaway from the Buckeyes' performance on Saturday? What did you like, and what didn't you like about the way the Buckeyes played?
I mean, it's kind of what we thought it was going to be. It was going to be a pretty big blowout there at first. I do have to say I never, in my wildest dreams, imagined that I would be on Ohio State campus on game day and not be at the game. So that was a little weird for me. As some of you know, I was at the Wexner at the Ohio State Medical Center. So I was, just a few blocks from the stadium, was able to go down there and kind of tailgate with family and stuff before the game started, but actually watch the game inside of the hospital. So that was a little different experience for me. As far as the game goes, I mean, I kind of thought they would focus more on the run game. I thought we'd see a lot of J.K. Dobbins. It kind of pissed me off that Mike Weber even played, and then, of course, he gets hurt too. So I know we had talked about that last week about how Mike Weber should just sit out. So that was just dumb that I think he was even playing to begin with. So I thought they would really try to get J.K. Dobbins going. The run game worries me a little bit. I mean, not too much. I mean, they showed against TCU that they're able to get it going when they need to. Passing game, I mean, Dwayne Haskins, I've been saying for a while he was good to go, and people were trying to fight us with the Joe Burrow thing, and, Dwayne Haskins may not be good, and the offense isn't good with people that can't run the ball. Dwayne Haskins is, once-in-a-lifetime type of quarterback for the Buckeyes, and so this is kind of what I expected, and didn't think he'd get up to 300 yards just because I thought they'd focus more on running game, but this is one of those games where if he wanted to, he could put up some, like, Texas Tech type of numbers and throw for, like, 600 yards and stuff, so it was good to see Haskins keep on going. It was good to see Paris Campbell really get going because he's someone that they're definitely going to need for the Penn State game. Defensively, it was good to see some of those other guys kind of make plays. Baron Browning showed up at one point. Dante Booker. Like, it was crazy to see Dante Booker making plays. That's kind of what we expected. I'm not going to get too excited about it because it was like mop-up time against Tulane, but it was still good to see him play good, and maybe that gives him some of that confidence that he needs. I mean, like, maybe that's what he's needed this whole time because Dante Booker's always had the talent. So we definitely saw more plays from him than I have seen from Pete Werner since week one. I couldn't even tell you one play that Pete Werner's been in these past 3 weeks. Same with Isaiah Pryor made that one big hit. And we even joked because Pryor made the big hit and then Baron Browning made a big hit like the very next play. We're like, God, Pryor and Browning making plays back to back. That is crazy. So, I mean, there was, definitely fun to watch the first half. Second half was, just a typical second half game for the Buckeyes against these crappy teams where, a lot of the backups kind of play. And I actually had to take off. The visiting hours for the hospital was ended like right about the end of the third quarter. So I missed the whole fourth quarter, but it doesn't sound like I really missed too much there, except for DeMario McCall getting some action.
So my first question I want to touch on for you involves actually the running game. The talk last week, and we were expecting it, we kind of bought into what Urban was leading on to in his press conference and whatnot. But the talk was they were really going to concentrate on the running game. So we were kind of under the impression and believing and thought that led to statistically it being a big game for the running backs, all 4 or 5 of them, whoever wanted to carry the ball. Obviously, it wasn't quite what we had envisioned, I don't believe. But at the same time, like you mentioned, I don't think anybody was expecting Haskins to throw for over 300 yards in the first half. My question for you is, do you have the concern with the running game just because we haven't seen it? Do you have the concern with the running game because it hasn't lived up to your expectations? Or is all this actually a little premature because we're not used to having a passing game this potent, and that's okay, and maybe it's something that will come into play down the road, but it's not as big of a deal as a lot of other people are making it out to be this year so far?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, we are used to seeing a lot more run game type of big plays. I mean, like we usually see those in years past, and it was just a different offense. So I think it's hard because we kind of compare it to a different offense than what Ohio State is this year. So I think coming into the year, like we were expecting like big run after big run from Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins, and that really hasn't been the case outside of week 1 when Mike Weber was pretty much just running wherever he wanted to. But then, like you think about what they did against TCU, and they, kind of impose their will in the run game a little bit in the second half where J.K. Dobbins was ready to keep on going. So you can see what they can do. But I feel like, and I don't know how true it is, but just as like casual fan watching, I feel like a lot of teams are being forced to either, focus on stopping the run, which they have done in years past, or kind of work on the pass game. And it seems to me like a lot of teams are kind of selling out to stop the run. There's a lot of blitzing up the middle. And those are things I think we saw in years past, but in years past, it was more of the quarterback option. And that's where we would see JT Barrett take it outside when everyone was kind of blitzing up the middle. So, but this year it's a different type of thing where like if you sell out against the run, you're going to see Dwayne Haskins throw all over you. And that's what I think we're kind of seeing this year is it's not necessarily the run game's not as good as it should be, because I think they're doing as good as they can based off of what defenses are giving them. It's just that there's maybe not as many opportunities because Dwayne Haskins is just killing them through the air. I mean, if you're blitzing 2 or 3 and leaving one-on-one coverage in the back half of the defense, Dwayne Haskins is going to tear you up. So defenses, I think, are doing what they've always done. They're selling out against the run for the Buckeyes and then making Haskins hurt them. And eventually we're going to see where defenses are going to be maybe a little more hesitant. And that's where you see J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber kind of take over the run game. And that's what, I mean, you and I have been saying it for a while. Like, this is what I love about this offense this year is if you sell out against the run, the passing game is going to kill you. If you drop back and try to put, 7 back in coverage and force the Buckeyes to run, J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber are going to kill you. So this offense is pretty stout. So I don't know. I mean, like, I'm concerned about the run game, but I think it more has to do with what the defenses are doing than what Ohio State's actually doing.
Yeah, see, I don't necessarily have the same level of hesitation that a lot of people have had when talking about the running game, because I've heard others, podcasts, I've read articles, I've heard, announcers and people talking. I would love to have seen a couple 125-yard days from Weber and Dobbins last week. And, against TCU, both of them get up there and whatnot. That's just because I'm fans of both of those guys. But personally, I'm completely fine with these guys having 70 to 100 yards a game and, Haskins having a 300-yard half again. Because if that's how you want to, if that's the poison you want to pick to stop the Buckeyes, I will take Haskins every time right now because, he's just such a talented, like you said, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of quarterback for Ohio State. It was pointed out, we talked about this over the weekend, and I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was Tony Gerdeman that said this on the Ozone. But, that the first touchdown pass that Paris Campbell caught, that one made us all open our eyes because it was the first time we saw Haskins not put the ball exactly where he wanted it. It was a 1.5 feet too close to Paris because Paris had to catch it by his body. And when your quarterback can do that, I will take that every time. And so I'm not concerned so much about the running game as some people are. Yes, there may be a time later this year with weather or something that may come in where we need the running game to take over. That'll be the day that the challenge happens, but I'm not overly worried about it. I would have liked to have seen a little more of the offensive line imposing their will onto Tulane because, just the size and talent difference they can. But I don't have the worry that a lot of people have had. But that leads me to my next question for you. And this isn't just talking about Tulane. This is just in general. Is it time to start the Dwayne Haskins Heisman talk?
Oh, I think it already should be in full gear. I mean, I think his performance against TCU should have kind of set him up for that, and I think it kind of did outside of the ESPN world. And, you know, like a lot of people kind of have him as number 2 behind Tua, who I'm not going to sit here and talk crap about him because from everything I heard, he's a good person and, you know, a great player. I have not seen Alabama play much this year. I mean, their game times have just kind of lined up with the Buckeyes quite a bit, or like my traveling stuff. I've been gone the past 3 weekends, so like my college football watching outside of Ohio State's been a little limited. So, I mean, he's kind of lined up there, but I think another big game Saturday night in College Station. Is that what it is? Yeah. I always mess them up. On Saturday night.
No, College Station's down here in Texas.
Dang it, man. Why do they always got to be? State College.
State College. There you go.
So another big game Saturday night. See, that's how much I care about Penn State. Like, they're freaking nobody to me. So, like, whatever. But yeah, another big game Saturday night against the top 10 team during the whiteout, you know, on prime time where a lot of people are going to be watching. I think Dwayne Haskins throws for another 300-plus yards, another 4 touchdowns. He's squarely number 1 at this point, and he'll be able to kind of really pad those numbers over the next month here and be full-on Heisman campaign going as we get into that Michigan State and Michigan game here at the end of November.
Yeah, absolutely. I am really disappointed, to be honest with you, that it's not been more of a push. You know, you see stuff, obviously, for Tua, like you said. You see the stuff for what's the kid from West Virginia? Will Grier?
Yeah, Will Grier. And,
Grier.
Ed Oliver with his, what was his,
the
bobblehead on,
yes.
on the horse. Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I understand that. That's pretty cool. But, you know, you just don't see a lot of the push. It doesn't feel like coming from the Woody that's pushing out for Haskins. But I think it is definitely time to start pimping that out because, you know, like you were saying, I mean, he's just had a fantastic year. He's just so damn good. Now, the next question on that, though, and it kind of feeds off that, if you're Haskins, do you go pro after this year or do you come back next year?
I still think it's a little early for that. I mean, he's definitely on the path where I would think, hey, let's bounce, because you look at the quarterback crew that will be coming out this year and Will Grier and, you know, like who else off the top of your head? Is Tua even eligible?
No, I think he's
a true sophomore, right?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, Shea Patterson, I mean, he's already got the September Heisman locked up. So, Abear out of Oregon. So, like, the class isn't that great, but if he keeps up, I think we're definitely possibility that we're going to see a 1-year Dwayne Haskins quarterback run here because, I mean, arm strength, size, if he keeps up with where he is, I mean, his stats are going to be phenomenal. He's going to lead a team to possibly the playoffs and stuff. So I think it's going to be set up for him. And he's one of those guys that even when he gets to the combine, he's just going to dominate. And I think he'll surprise people with how fast he can run, you know, because I think he's a little more mobile than we've seen. We kind of saw that last year with the Michigan game where he is able to move. And I think what really sets him apart from most quarterbacks is just the way he throws on the rollout and like on the move. He still has that same arm strength and the accuracy. So, yeah, I mean, I think if Dwayne Haskins keeps up where he's at right now, he should definitely leave after this year. But there's a lot of football to be played between now and then. So,
oh yeah, I wanted to get your thought on it because, I mean, obviously, if you start the Heisman-hype train for him and that continues to build momentum as it really should, you have to know that that's the next question after that. You know, is okay. Now the Heisman-hype's there. Does he leave? There's just something about him as far as it feels to me like he's the guy that's smart enough that he'd want to come back for a second year of starting. But, I mean, that's completely no there's no indication one way or the other. That's just my feel on him. The other thing I wanted to touch on that you just mentioned, when he's mobile, I think the difference and what surprises people is when you look at Haskins, he doesn't look like the kind of guy that can run. Like he looks taller. He looks like he's a little lean. He doesn't look like he has any, the muscle mass. Because, when you see him, he's got the rib protectors on. Those stick through his jersey. So he doesn't have that kind of a little bit of a hybrid running back build to him like J.T. Barrett had. J.T. was a little more, thicker, I guess you'd be a good way to say it. Haskins looks like he's a little leaner. So
thick-witted.
When he does have, there you go. But when Haskins has to run, I think he does surprise people a lot with it for sure. So I was just curious, and, to be honest with you, the Tulane game was nothing to me. It was really
boring.
Yes. Unfortunately, I understand why you have to have cupcakes on your schedule, these low-level teams. And spoiler alert, I think this is going to be a Son of a Schmidt segment later. But, yeah, it just kind of, after the first half, I was half tuned out of the game. I'm not going to lie to you. So is there anything else that you had on there, or are you ready to recap our over-unders from last week and talk about the week so far?
The only other thing I'm going to bring up, which I thought was kind of funny with the Tulane game, is what's one things that Ohio State fans talk about every year about getting this position involved, and we always think it's back. Which position is it that the Buckeye fans always want to be involved in the Buckeye offense?
Are you talking about the tight end?
Yep, tight end. So Saturday, it was just, it's so fun because everyone thinks tight end's finally going to be involved. Tight end. Ohio State quarterbacks completed 31 passes on Saturday to 14 different people. Guess how many tight ends caught the ball?
How many were tight ends, Brandon?
0. 14 people caught the ball. No tight ends. I thought that was kind of funny, just because Ohio State fans are obsessed with getting the tight end involved.
Well, I think that's a byproduct of the Jim Tressel era. Just like we all love the punters, we all love our tight ends. Although I will say, I have to believe with what's the true freshman's name? Ruckert. I think with him on the roster, he's going to force his way into the passing game before his time in Columbus.
Once he kind of figures some more stuff out, I mean, he's showing the potential there. And one thing that's exciting is next year after Dwayne Haskins leaves and Ben Van Ooyen gets Tate Martell as his starting quarterback, it seems like Tate Martell.
Shout out, Ben.
Yep. It sounds like it looks like Tate Martell and Ruckert have a pretty good connection going, and it'll be fun to kind of watch those two once they both get starting jobs.
Absolutely. Of course, that means that when Martell takes over, we'll probably have a revert back to more of a J.T. Barrett style offense than the pure passing game, but that's all right. You give me Tate Martell and J.K. Dobbins and Ruckert and Mac's Mac a junior?
Well, that's what I think. Ruckert could be very heavily involved as early as next year because Mac is junior, so Mac could be gone. You think about all those wide receivers that could be gone. I mean, they could be left with Victor, Jalen Harris, McCall. I mean, there's not too much that's going to be coming back. So the tight end could play a bigger role because they aren't going to be rolling 8 deep like they are with the wide receivers this year.
What do they call it? 6 wide receiver starters or something like that this year. So, all right, man. Well, let's go ahead and let's do a little recap here. All right. So, obviously, I mentioned it before. Everybody knows Ohio State wins 48-6. In our over/under segment last week, we had to start with in the quarterback position. We had Tate Martell at the 125-yard passing mark. We both took the under on that. And we both got that one right. We nailed that one just barely. He was at 115 yards.
That was a close one.
Anything that you noticed when Tate was in the game?
No, the offense struggled. That's about all I got.
But so the reason I do ask that, and this was kind of a setup because I'm an evil asshole like that. Was it Martell's play, what you saw, was it his play that struggled, or was it the second and third string offensive line?
It was the offensive line.
Okay.
Those backups are not very good.
But that's why they have to play them.
But they're young
to get them going.
Yeah,
exactly. That's
they are
exactly
super
it.
young and they're super talented. But right now, it's one of those things where like if anyone from that starting team gets hurt, like you're worried about who's going to be able to step in, especially if one of the tackles goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I know he's not a tackle, but, last year, like with Brandon Bowen, when he went down, that was a big question for us.
Well, and if Brandon Bowen was healthy, he would be awesome to have in case one of the tackles goes down or one of the guards. Like he could slide in anywhere. And
oh, yeah.
So,
all right, well. At running back, we're buying into the Urban Meyer running game attack for the weekend, and we threw Master Teague on the list at 50 yards as the over-under. We both went over. We both missed it. He only ended the game with 25 yards rushing. Although there was a sighting at running back that has got a couple people on this show semi-excited. Obviously, McCall made some non-wide receiver lineups in that game. Anything on that?
I think it's smart for the Buckeye, especially with Mike Weber kind of being hurt. I think I was always kind of curious early on when they were playing Master Teague and Brian Sneed so much together because you only have like the 4 games. I just always felt like they would kind of spread it out a little bit more and you would be able to only play each of those guys in 4 games. When you got J.K. Dobbins, Mike Weber, and DeMario McCall, who has a lot of experience back there at running back. So I think it was good to see him back there, and I think it was a smart move for the Buckeyes. And I think even going into the Penn State game on Saturday, I would not be shocked if, it was J.K. Dobbins, Mike Weber, and DeMario McCall as the only guys that see any time at running back. Because I think
me too.
McCall could be a weapon back there, especially on those swing routes that the Buckeyes like to run in some of these big games.
All right, so we'll switch it up here. Your boy KJ Hill got our nod at wide receiver. We had the over-under at 100 yards, and we both knew going in, hey, it's difficult to get that number up just because there's only so many balls, even if 14 guys do have receptions during the game. At the 100-yard over-under, we both went under. Obviously, we both got that one correct. KJ had 57 yards. But the one thing that finally did show up, and I figure you might have something to say on this, my man Paris Campbell finally got himself a 100-yard game, had a pair of touchdowns. What are your thoughts on that, man?
It was fun to see him finally get going. I think the Buckeyes have been kind of setting that up all year, working at getting Paris Campbell to a spot where he feels comfortable. As you remember, like earlier this year when I did my stat predictions for the Ozone, I had Paris Campbell kind of breaking out and having a huge year, and I still think he will. I think Saturday kind of showed us what Paris Campbell can do between the run game, between Austin Mack on the outside and guys like McLaurin and all those guys out there. It kind of opens up Paris Campbell to those one-on-one spots, and especially as much as the Buckeyes are throwing the ball, I think Paris Campbell is set up to have another huge game on Saturday night. And if they want to focus on Paris Campbell, then you're going to see Austin Mack or KJ Hill or McLaurin go for 100-plus yards. So it'll be interesting to see how Penn State lines up again. But it was awesome to see Paris Campbell get going and show what he can do and catch some of those down-the-field passes, as risky and scary as they were, to see them kind of bobbling around his hands.
Well, and the funny thing is, I know we've both been high on KJ Hill for a long time. We've both been big fans of his. But I've been a huge Paris Campbell fan for a couple years too. So every time I get to see him have a big game personally, that's a big one for me. Like he's like Mike Weber to me. I absolutely love seeing Paris Campbell just rip it up on the field.
Well, and I will tell you this much: if the Buckeyes go 4 wide with like Johnny Dixon and Austin Mack and Paris Campbell and KJ Hill, I feel like they could do that all game, every game, and just dominate every team. Like Dwayne Haskins would just sit back there and pick people apart because all 4 of those guys at some point is going to beat their man one-on-one. So,
oh yeah,
I don't know. Love this passing
all
offense.
right, man. Well, let's look at the defensive side of the ball. You know, we tried to switch it up a little bit. We went with the entire defensive line, defensive ends and tackles. Put the over/under on 3.5 sacks. You went with over. I went with under. Obviously, they ended up with 3 sacks between the defensive line. So I'm going to claim that one as a win for myself, although I am going to throw you a bone because if you put in Baron Browning, they ended up with 4. So we both kind of got that one right. Anything that you noticed on the defensive line or linebackers that you want to touch on?
No, I mean, it was same stuff we've always talked about. The defensive line kind of looked good. It was good to see Jonathan Cooper and especially Chase Young. I thought Chase Young looked really good on Saturday. Draymond Jones in the middle. I mean, it sucks not having Nick Bosa there, but I think those guys kind of stepped up. And it was good to see some of those younger guys like Tyreek Smith and Tyler Friday step up. Hamilton played a good game on Saturday. I was really impressed with him. As I talked about last week, I'm kind of not as big on Robert Landers just because of his size, and I thought Hamilton was one of those guys that could kind of step up in there, and I thought Hamilton played really good and kind of played that defensive tackle, fill the gap type of role, and he's over 300 pounds. So I think we'll see a lot more of Davon Hamilton moving forward. So those guys look good. Linebackers, starters were pretty non-existent. I think, what was it, Tony said that they had like 0 tackles for the game. It was great to see Dante Booker actually show up and play football. We've all been kind of expecting that for a while. Granted, it was like second half mop-up time. It was nothing special. But maybe that's the confidence builder that he needs to kind of work forward and see if he can work his way into the lineup. Because, I mean, just seeing him play one quarter was more plays I've seen from that position than I've seen from Pete Werner over the past couple of weeks. I mean, I couldn't, and I was telling you this before we started, like I can't think of one play that Pete Werner's made since week 1. Like nothing.
But does that concern you? I mean, I know Tough Borland's supposed to be off of the pitch count this week, and he's supposed to be, you know, good to go 100%. And I mean, that's a testament to him with the rehab and coming back from his injury and everything. But does that concern you the way that Tough did not really make an impact against Tulane going into the Big Ten schedule?
Not as much. I mean, I feel like it's a different beast with Tulane running that, like, I don't know, it's like a modified triple option. Yeah, it's like a different thing. So, I mean, it all depends on where the ball goes, on where the guys go. And they were kind of attacking the edge, and that's why you saw Isaiah Pryor and the safeties kind of make a few more plays and the cornerbacks. So the one thing I do hope is now that Tough Borland's 100% good to go, I hope Ohio State works Baron Browning outside. And I would kind of like to see a Harrison, Tough Borland, and Baron Browning linebacker group back there. I mean, I think Justin Hilliard's good enough to be backup middle linebacker there. And I think Baron Browning is, and as we both have said, I think he's more suited for the outside. He's just not that guy that can go up there and plug the middles like Tough Borland can. So I think it's a little concerning just because of when you, not so much just from Saturday, but when you factor in like everything that's happened over the season, I'm still a little worried about the linebacker group, but I think it should be okay. As long as they just, you know, worry about filling their gaps and kind of blocking their holes. I think they're pretty fundamentally sound. They just kind of are overly aggressive sometimes.
Okay. In the defensive backfield, I had Jeffrey Okudah on here. Over-under set at 1 pick. Now, obviously, he had 0, but he had one hell of a play on that 1 pick he had that was called back for offsides. But, you know, I mentioned it in my my article earlier this week. I gave Okudah a lot of praise because you saw a cornerback at Ohio State play the receiver and then play the ball. I mean, he, you know, the one play they even pointed out on the broadcast, he kind of got roasted on. He didn't turn around, didn't find the ball. Tulane it was like a 39-yard reception or something crazy. I forget now. But, when he was able to turn and find the ball and make a play on it, he looked more like what we see as a normal defensive back instead of just playing the man. And I thought that was impressive. So I'm giving him a hat tip there. I know technically I was wrong and you were right there, but I'm giving him a hat tip for definitely having a pick. The last one, obviously, was Nurnberger having 5 scores. We both went over. He got that with 7 extra points. So
that was
not a bad week on over-under. Yeah, I know. Sometimes you have to, Last little bit before we wrap up, go to break. Not a whole lot of news this week on the depth chart. No changes really to the depth chart that's been released. Obviously, we got a couple guys like Nick Bosa who will not play Saturday night. It was announced tonight that Mike Weber definitely will play. A couple other guys. I think Landers is supposed to be back. Didn't I read that? I believe. Anything on the depth chart or the interviews that you want to touch on, or are you ready to take a break?
No, I think it's all kind of what we expected. I don't think anyone expected Mike Weber to sit out Saturday night. I'm all for him playing Saturday night. No, yeah, I'm all for him playing this Saturday against Penn State. Then I'd be cool if he just sat until Michigan State week. But NFL-wise, I don't think he will do that because he's kind of already got a reputation of being injured a lot. So I think he's going to have to push through this, and hopefully he just makes it to the end of the year because he's a damn good player.
All right. Well, if that's all you got on Tulane, let's ship the Green Wave back to New Orleans, and we'll take a quick break. This week we've got another new sponsor from a website called The Answer, so we'll get their spiel here in a minute. When we come back, we're going to start looking forward to Penn State this week, so we'll take a break.
Do you hate your job? Is your boss a jerk who's more worried about how hot your wife is than winning? Do you want to be so important at work you'll make up rivalries with those around you? Are you ready for a change? I have good news for you. We are The Answer.
The Answer is your leading job search site in State College. It doesn't matter if you've been at work and shit your pants. It doesn't matter if you think you produce the best backers in the country. You can spend all your days dreaming about being locked away in a creamery. We don't even care if you manage to get a nickname after a mythical creature that's been extinct in your lands for 130 years. You deserve a change when you're ready. So come to Pennsylvania State Answer. We are what you're looking for.
All right, Brandon. So, I mentioned it earlier. We all know, obviously, Ohio State goes to Penn State this weekend. Saturday on ABC, 7:30 kick. Obviously, this is a big game for the people in Pennsylvania and for the State University of Pennsylvania. Yeah, I don't know. Is that their name? I know it's the State University of New Jersey, but whatever. I don't care.
State University of who gives a shit.
Pretty much. I'm not even joking. I hate Penn State. I'm so sick of these people. Anyways, as I was saying, Penn State rolls in number 9. Last week they beat down on Illinois on the scoreboard. If you watch the game, it really wasn't as wide open as that score will show. I mean, the final score obviously 63-24, but man, Illinois was in this game for a while and kind of put a little bit of a scare into Penn State. Obviously, they've not had the challenge, I think, that even Ohio State has had. They have not played a TCU-type caliber talent team. They played Appalachian State at the beginning of the year, almost lost that game. They played Pittsburgh, who's really not all that good, and then it was one of the directional Ohio schools, Kent State. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was them or Akron, but it's just they've played a pretty cupcake schedule. Obviously, Illinois is a cupcake Big Ten team, but what's your first initial thoughts on Penn State, and what should the Buckeyes worry about besides, if you say Trace McSorley, because I hate him too, I'll reach through the screen and hit you. But go ahead, man. What do you got? What is your initial thought on Penn State?
Trace McSorley. No.
God, I hate that guy.
No, I mean, gosh, they've got a good offense. I feel like Ohio State can do what they need to do against the defense. Just because of the big plays that Ohio State's defense has been giving up this year, I am a little bit worried about the Penn State offense.
Well, the Penn State offense is currently leading the country, and they're averaging 55.5 points a game. Ohio State's right behind them at 54.5. These two teams, obviously, they're the only schools in the country to score at least 30 touchdowns. So their offense can move the ball against the talent they've played. You're absolutely right there.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got guys on offense that do kind of set up good against what the Buckeyes do defensively. Trace McSorley, I know I can't stand him just as much as you can. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. But what he does do that I think is good against the Buckeyes is he's able to move around the pocket and always keep his eyes downfield. I mean, if you watch that game against Pittsburgh and last week, like, the Penn State offensive line does not impress me too much. And I feel like even without Nick Bosa, the Buckeye defensive line is going to get a lot of pressure on him. But much like last year against Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield, where the defense was all over him and he would have like 3 guys on him and he would somehow come out and spin out and go on the run and throw the ball, I feel like Trace McSorley might have those type of tendencies too, where he can move around the pocket just enough to keep the Buckeye defensive line at bay and get the ball downfield. So Trace McSorley, I think, is set up good to deal with the Buckeye pass rush. I still think Ohio State defensive line will get to him, but I think he will hurt them on some big plays off of him being able to scramble outside of the pocket. Outside Trace McSorley, KJ Hamler is a dude that I am really impressed with. He worries me more than anyone on that Penn State offense. I feel like him lined up like in the slot with his speed and shiftiness, I feel like he can do some damage, especially if he gets one-on-one with like Isaiah Pryor, or God forbid, Jayshon Wentz playing for some reason. I just feel like he can cause some damage there, and he's one of those guys that can just take a little 5-yard route from McSorley scrambling out and just, get it in the wrong angle and be gone. So,
well, he's a more talented, better version of the wide receiver that TCU had.
Yeah, whatever his name is.
I can't remember his name now, but the little 4'7" wideout they have. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, so with Hamler, Juwan Johnson's kind of their Austin Mack type of guy who is just the person that they can be reliable and counted on, and he's not going to be the guy that makes the huge plays, but he's going to be, the guy that Trace McSorley looks for in clutch situations. So those two guys at wide receiver kind of worry me quite a bit. And the thing with Juwan Johnson too is how tall he is. He's what, 6'4", I think.
6'4" or 6'5".
Yeah. So 6'4", 225. So, I mean, he's a bigger guy, so he's going to have the size advantage. Kendall Sheffield would probably be the only one comparable with him. If Damon Arnett is lined up on anyone, there's going to be a little bit of a disadvantage. But
on that, something I want to point out. I was listening to the Silver Bullets podcast, and Chip Minnick, who does a great job of breaking stuff down too on that show, by the way, listen to it if you're not. He pointed out something I hadn't really thought about. What is your thought if Ohio State lines up with Wade on him?
Well, as much as I wanted Wade to be back at safety, I don't think that's happening, even though people were trying to tell us that it was like something was happening. As soon as he didn't line up back there at all last week, I think that kind of threw that out of the window that Shaun Wade's ever going to be playing safety for the Buckeyes.
At least this year.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, I mean, Shaun Wade has really impressed me quite a bit in coverage. I definitely think he's a better coverage corner than Damon Arnett. I think jury's still kind of out on Kendall Sheffield. So I think Shaun Wade might be the guy, but Okuda's looked really good last Saturday too. I thought he looked really good. We forgot to bring him up last week when we're talking about guys that look good, but I thought Okuda played one of his best games, especially his best game since that USC game against in the Cotton Bowl. So Okuda's got some size. Shaun Wade has some size. Really, as long as anyone but Damon Arnett is on Juwan Johnson, I think the Buckeyes will be set up pretty good. But I think we'll see a lot of nickel, a lot of Shaun Wade this Saturday night.
Okay. Now, obviously, you can't look at Penn State's offense without looking at Miles Sanders, their running back, who, he's had a big year so far. Just shy of 500 yards for the season, averaging about 7 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns for the year. Obviously, he's a huge part of their offense also. What's your thoughts on him? How do the Buckeyes line up against Sanders?
Well, I mean, I think stats are a little inflated from that Illinois game on Saturday night. Going into that game in the 3 games, he still had 295 yards. So he was right around the 100 yards per game. But the Illinois kind of pushed him up into levels where you're kind of eye-popping. So I watched the Pitt game. I watched the Illinois game, most of it, on Friday night. And I personally, I really enjoy the way he runs. It's sort of Carlos Hyde-ish to me, where, there's not a lot of juking going on, but he's going in full speed and he's going to knock the crap out of someone. And I really enjoy that for a running back. And I really kind of miss those Carlos Hyde, the Eddie George types for the Buckeyes, and the Zeke kind of did that quite a bit. I feel like J.K. Dobbins, Mike Weber are more get out in space and make you look stupid type of guys. So I really enjoyed watching Miles Sanders. But, yeah, I mean, his stats were a little bloated because of Illinois and their horrible rush defense. But I think Penn State's going to have to rely on him quite a bit because – against Ohio State, you do not want to just go in there passing the ball. Like, you've got to have some sort of running attack. And I think Miles Sanders, I think Ricky Slade, the other guy, I think he's a true freshman. I think they're both able to keep the Buckeyes off balance just enough. He's nowhere on the J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor level yet. He may be someday. But I think he's good enough to keep them off balance and to allow Trace McSorley to throw the ball downfield without being under attack too much from the defensive line.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the inflated stats. I sent a message to you earlier this week that the reason that Penn State leads the nation in scoring is because they had a 35-point fourth quarter against Illinois. It's the only reason they won that game. But you and I were talking before we came on the air. Is the Pitt game, the one that you were watching, we were talking about that. Penn State was up 30-6 in the fourth quarter, and they still had Trace McSorley in their plan. So, yeah, they have a decent stat line going, and, yeah, that looks great on paper, but you're absolutely right. There is definitely some inflation there, whether they're trying to push something, postseason awards or just trying to, scare people or something, but it's definitely inflated higher than what it would be, or higher than the Buckeye stat lines are when you consider the fact that, again, Dwayne Haskins plays 3 games, he plays a half a game each game or something. So I definitely saw that. Now, looking at the other side of the ball, I'm sorry, were you done on the Penn State offense?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. Well, the other thing is, we're used to seeing that big crazy tight end for Penn State, and they kind of don't have that, the big just mismatch, the Gesicki's and stuff, Jesse James. They don't seem to really have that this year like they have in years past, where Trace McSorley can just arm punt it up and let a tight end go up and get it. So it'll be interesting. That's good for the Buckeyes because we've seen this struggle against tight ends in years past. So. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if the Penn State tight ends are brought back into it.
Okay. All right. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and reverse it over to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously Penn State has talent on defense. They're a top half of the Big Ten team right now for a reason. They're not out here getting 2- and 3-star, players. I mean, they're getting talent, obviously. There are a couple things that stick out in my mind. I mean, you can beat Penn State's defense fairly easily when you're set up the way Ohio State is. The thing that sticks out to me is Appalachian State threw the ball for, I think it's 270 yards against them the first game of the season. And if Appy State, who granted is probably the best group of 5 school there is right now as far as football teams go, if they can throw for 270, I'll take Dwayne Haskins all day. But that being said, how does Ohio State attack the Penn State defense, and how do we come out victorious when we have the ball?
Well, I think Ohio State's going to have to go back to their roots and kind of focus on the run. I mean, you brought up passing, but if anyone watched that Penn State game on Friday night, Illinois was able to run on Penn State quite a bit, and they looked pretty weak up the middle. And that's where Ohio State's always kind of made their bread and butter, as kind of attacking the middle with the different types of traps and stuff. Illinois rushed for 279 yards on Friday night. I think Ohio State is going to have to kind of focus on rushing the ball, but I also feel like Penn State's going to do like everyone else did and kind of stack the box and not allow Ohio State and J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber to get going. But I think they're going to have to go for it, and eventually that'll open up the down the field passing. And I really think, as much as I want J.K. Dobbins to have like a breakout 200-yard game type of thing, or Mike Weber, I really think this is going to be Dwayne Haskins' show on Saturday night. And I think Penn State's shown a lot of vulnerability over the middle, blitzing off the edge quite a bit. It seemed like a lot of their pressure always comes from the edges, which opens up the middle, and that's where you got Michael Jordan and Demetrius Knox and Malcolm Pridgeon, who've all been pretty solid this year. I mean, like every game, those 3 are grading out big, and not even talking about the tackles. Like, they've been playing good too, but those 3 up the middle have been pretty strong. So you've got a defense that's been susceptible to running up the middle. I would not be shocked if, there were a few long runs for Ohio State up the middle off of this, and some of those kind of run game reverting back to kind of what they did against TCU that they went away from against Tulane. I think they wanted to kind of take a little bit off of the tape for Penn State. And I think Ohio State offense is going to put up a lot of points on Saturday night.
Well, I mean, you look at it, we mentioned the weak schedule that Penn State has played. I mean, they're not exactly setting the world on fire with their opponents, but, they give up 173 yards a game passing, 172.5 yards a game rushing. So, they can be beat either way. So if you want to stack the box, give me Haskins. If you want to put 7 back, give me Weber and Dobbins. They can easily be pushed around on defense. Let me rephrase that. They can easily, for what Penn State has been in the past and what we're expecting, be pushed around easy. They're not going to be an Oregon State type or whatever, but they can be beaten when Ohio State has the ball very, very easily in my mind.
Well, and I think it's because their defensive line's a lot smaller than we've kind of seen in years past. I mean, you look at their defensive line, Sharif Miller, 6'5", 260. The other end, I'm not even going to try to say that, Gross Matheos, 6'5", 259. Their biggest tackle is 295 pounds. So I feel like this is a smaller defensive line than we've kind of seen from Penn State in years past. And that's usually where they kind of dominate the Buckeyes, is from their defensive line. And it just hasn't been that way this year. And they've got all the experience there. I mean, they got 3 senior starters out there on that defensive line. And it's just, I think some of those younger guys are going to have to step up for Penn State to really make a difference on Saturday night and stop the Buckeye offense from doing whatever they want to do.
Yeah, because they're giving up right around 4 yards a carry on defense. So, there's definitely something there. It's got to be the size or something, but they're definitely susceptible. So,
well, and then you look at their linebackers too. Their biggest linebacker is 234 pounds. I mean, it's just there's just no size on that front seven at all. So
no. So before we get into our over/under for the Penn State game, is there anything else that you want to put out there? Anything else that sticks out to you?
No, I mean, it's going to be fun. Like, I was just talking to my wife about it tonight. She knows that she has to, during college football season, it's college football talk. I was letting her know how excited I am for this Saturday night. I mean, this is one of those games that you are legitimately looking forward to for a long time. And with the whiteout, with, just everything that's going on with the Buckeyes, I feel like this is a big game for Ohio State moving forward as far as college football playoff wise, and looking forward to it. Unleash some demons on Saturday night.
Sounds good. But speaking of the whiteout, I still don't understand that. You're going to have 100,000 people wearing the same color as the visiting team. How's that intimidating? I mean,
we didn't say they were smart.
I know. I mean, I get it. They're loud, and it's a loud stadium, but that just does not make sense to me. Like, if you're going to do that, that's the game the home team should wear white. Then it makes sense. But anyways, I digress. So let's get into over-unders because I'm already sick of talking about Penn State. First things first, Dwayne Haskins, 5 touchdown passes, over/under, man.
Man, whew. Coming out tough right away.
Hey, it's a tough game for everybody.
I will go. I'm going to play it safe and go under. I think he probably might be at or over that, but I'm going to go officially under.
I got you. I'm going to go the under on that one also. I fully expect to see a few more short yardage kind of some rushing touchdowns. You might actually see the Tate Martell, Tim Tebow package at some point this game. I could definitely see that if it gets down close to the goal line. So I'm going to take the under there. So the running backs, we're finally going to go ahead and combine them. I know I've been saying this for a while, and I know I've gotten you calling them J.K. Weber also, and I love it because it's just so appropriate. But J.K. Weber, 200 yards rushing between the two of them. Over/under?
Over.
Over and over. I do expect those two to play a huge part in this game. KJ Hill, 100 yards receiving. Over/under? I know it's like picking darts because you don't know which guy it's going to be. So
I think the safest way with any 100-yard wide receiver is just to always go under. I mean, there's just too many of them. You just never know which one's going to go up. I mean, like, Terry McLaurin's gone 100-plus yards.
Right.
Like, you just never know who's going to do it. So I'm going to go under just because he's more that the possession type. But I think he's going to have a good game on Saturday.
He's going to have a large reception amount. I think he's going to be under 100 yards also.
Yeah, it could be like 8 catches, 70 yards type of night for him.
All right, now on defense. We've been picking with the defensive line so far all season. I'm going to change it up for you now. The linebackers, the starting linebackers. Do we have 6 tackles between the 3 of them? Solo tackles, over/under?
I'm going to go over. I think this is going to have to be a big game for them. Between Trace McSorley running, Trace McSorley scrambling, and Miles Sanders kind of attacking the middle of the field. I think Tough Borland will get 6 by himself.
See, I'm going to finally break ranks. I'm going to go under, and I think the only reason being, and this is why I make sure to specify starting linebackers, you're going to see a rotation of linebackers this week more than what we've seen so far. I think the linebacker core is going to have a decent game, but our 3 starters I do not think are going to have 6. So keeping with that number, though, I'm going to change it up on the defensive backs for you. Does Fuller have 6 tackles, over/under?
I'll also go over on that one. I think Fuller's been playing so good. I've been impressed with him more than anyone else on that Buckeye defense here lately, and I think he's the one that kind of mops up everyone else's screw-ups. So I'm going to go over.
All right, I'm going to go over on that too. So the last one for you, because we got to throw a little special team love, I'm going to change this up a little bit from the original runner I sent you. Does Nuremberger have 7 scores this week, over, under?
We go over.
I'll take the over there. I still think 7's a little low. It's about time we see Das Boot get in there and have some field goals too, so I can see that happening. So
I prefer touchdowns over field goals every time.
Me too. All right, man, so that's all I've got. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll come back for the Son of a Schmidt segment, and then we'll get our Schmidt picks. We'll wrap this one all up, and we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your favorite weekly segment.
Son of a Schmidt.
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 All right, Brandon, so it's time for Son of a Schmidt. I'm actually going to change something up because this has been bugging me all week. So I'm actually going to go ahead and go first on this one because this is something that really weighs on my mind. I understand that doing a out-of-conference schedule in major college football is not an easy task. I'm not saying it is. I also understand that in today's college football world, you can't play, Alabama, Clemson, TCU, and Georgia as your out-of-conference schedule every year. There's just no way anybody's going to do that. The Ohio State's not going to do it. Those schools aren't going to do it just because you have to have the ability to not quite eliminate yourself the first week of the season. I also know that with college football not having a true preseason, that you have to have a game that you can use as a warm-up, right? You have to get some guys some playing experience. You have to get some time on the field just to see what's going on out there. My problem is the cupcake schedule games. Look, I know next year is going to be rough because of the whole TCU backing out of their thing, so Ohio State's schedule next year doesn't look nearly as tough. I understand that, we played TCU. Oregon State is actually they're at least a Power 5 conference. Rutgers is Big Ten. There's nothing you can do about it. But I absolutely hate these games like the Tulane game this weekend because, quite frankly, it's boring. I mean, I love college football. You love college football. The people listening to this show love college football. We've talked about it many times. You've only got so many weekends of college football every year. You have 3/4 of the year where you don't get college football. So when you have a game that people are going to the stadium and they're having a good game day experience, they're enjoying the band, they're having fun tailgating, we're at home, we're all having a good time too, it just gets boring. I mean, I love Ohio State more than almost anything that there is to be a fan of in this world. But, I mean, like I said earlier today, dude, I checked out of that game. I took a nap at halftime. And in the second half, I was getting ready because my wife and I went out for our anniversary dinner on Saturday night. We were getting ready for that. I was just walking by the TV in the second half. I wasn't even paying attention. So I get why you have to have it. It's great to get these guys playing time. We talked about the backup offensive line, getting them time to play, getting them some experience, some reps, seeing what you have, getting to experiment a little bit. But, man, those games are just terrible. I hate playing the group of 5 schools, and I don't care that the American Athletic Conference wants to call itself a Power 6 school because that's not a thing. That's not a Power 5 school, by any means. Talent level, their coaching, it's not on the same par as what Ohio State is or even the Big Ten. Most of the schools are. I hate them. I mean, it's terrible. I just don't like watching them. Like, I lose interest in the game when it's that much of a blowout. And yeah, I know the final score wasn't a 90-0, which it could have very well been, but it just irritates me, man. So that's my complaint this week. Son of a Schmidt. God, I hate cupcake games.
Well,
this sounds like a rebuttal.
No, I mean, like, I enjoy all Ohio State football, so whether they're whooping the ass out of Tulane or they're whooping the ass out of Penn State, I just love watching the Buckeyes whoop that ass. So
True.
But I feel you. That second half was a little rough. Ohio State had no desire to be on that field. They had no desire to score points. They just wanted to get off that field as quickly as possible without any injuries heading into Penn State. So
Yep.
I feel you. Like, the first couple of weeks, I enjoy putting up 70 points. Like, I thought that was awesome. But this week, yeah, with Penn State coming up, I definitely feel you on that one. I'm sitting in that hospital room, and I was the same way. I was ready to take a little bit of a nap there. So, yeah, as far as my son of a Schmidt, like, I'm going to go ahead and do my son of a Schmidt about son of a Schmidt because, like, this shit's hard to come up with. Like, I'm not that angry of a person.
Liar.
It's hard to come up with stuff every freaking week to be so upset about. And, honestly, this week it was kind of a rough weekend for me and very busy, and I didn't get a chance to watch too much. I know there's a big deal being made about, like, roughing the quarterback in the NFL, but who the f*** watches the NFL? So, like, I got nothing on that. I don't know. Son of a Schmidt. I just don't have anything this week to really son of a Schmidt about, so I'm going to son of a Schmidt into my chair and be quiet and just look forward to Penn State. Screw those guys. Son of a Schmidt.
All right.
Son of a Schmidt.
All right, man, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up with our Schmidt picks, and we'll put the final touches on this one, and we'll get ready for Penn State. So we'll be back in just a second.
You are listening to the Sons of Schmidt podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, presented by Hayes and Cannon. The ORN is the online radio home of the Buckeye Sloopcast, the Silver Bullets podcast, Across the Field, and, of course, the Sons of Schmidt, with new episodes broadcast every day of the week. For more information, go to www.theozone.net. And now, back to the show.
All right, good read in there, Brandon.
Woo!
I'm so excited we got one for you, man. Yeah, that was.
I was feeling it.
I felt like
brought it.
I felt like I was like listening to other radio or something, like a full blown announcer.
My C-game
yeah,
for that one.
We get all decked out. All right, brother. So talking about Schmidt picks. Last week, obviously, you had a fantastic week. Way to bounce back from your abysmal showing the week before.
I just got to keep you in the game.
That's what it was, man. To refresh everybody's memory, we had the Michigan game versus Nebraska, Bama versus Texas A&M, Texas versus TCU, Stanford versus Oregon, Wisconsin versus, I believe they played Iowa, right? And then obviously Ohio State versus Tulane. You nailed off all of your picks. You had Michigan, Bama, Texas, Stanford, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. Brings
That's
your
right.
overall record for the year to 13-5. I had Michigan, Bama, TCU, Oregon, Wisconsin, and Ohio State. Obviously, I missed the TCU and Oregon picks. Dropped me to 12-6, so you took a one-game lead on me again this week. So looking at this week's schedule, a couple better games to pick through. I know last week wasn't all that great for really anybody. There wasn't a whole lot of top 25 games or anything. But to get things started, we'll go with the Big 12. Number 12, West Virginia, goes to Lubbock and takes on number 25, Texas Tech, who I have no idea how they're ranked number 25. But what do you got in that one, man?
Well, they're ranked because they whooped the shit out of Oklahoma State last week, who was, like number 15 or something?
Yeah, how that happened, I don't know either.
Because they whooped the shit out of Boise State, who was ranked high for some reason. So it's all a twisted web of fun. This one, who was it again? West Virginia and Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Man, I've never been a fan of West Virginia, and I never give them credit for anything. I don't really care for Texas Tech either. I'm going to go with alleged Heisman guy Will Grier, and I think West Virginia will pull this. Where was this one at?
It's in
again?
Lubbock, Texas.
Oh, man, see. You know what? I'm going to go West Virginia. Screw it. I'm going to go West Virginia.
All right. Well, that's one thing we don't have to worry about, everything being the same this week. So I'm actually going to go with hold on, now my computer's being all crazy. There we go. I'm going to go with Texas Tech in this game, if for no other reason than, to be honest with you, I like the whole hoopla they had with Houston earlier this year about the whole cotton celebration game that they do. And they were all pissed off at Houston because Houston wouldn't let them wear their white jerseys for the cotton game. Yeah, it was dumb. So anyways.
Well, and they say Texas Tech is undefeated since Kingsbury grew out his beard. That actually made me grow out my beard too. So
I see that. You do have a Kingsbury kind of look about you, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm going. I figure it is wintertime here. I got to start growing that thing out. So.
All right, moving on. Number 7, Stanford goes to South Bend and takes on number 8, Notre Dame. What do you got in this one?
God, this is another tough one. There are some good games this week. Stanford really impressed me against Oregon. I thought Oregon kind of had them set up for the knockout blow, and Stanford was ready to they fought back and won that game. So Notre Dame, I'm not that impressed with them at all. I know they beat the crap out of Michigan week 1, but really that, if you look at it, it was kind of like a early on Notre Dame punched them in the mouth, and Michigan wasn't ready to receive those. But if you look over like the last 3 quarters, kind of Michigan dominated that game. So I think with KJ Costello kind of opening up the passing game a little bit more, it's a lot like what the Buckeyes are going through, where teams are selling out to stop Bryce Love, and it's forcing Costello to throw the ball downfield. I think Stanford goes into South Bend and wins this game.
Yep, I do too. If for no other reason than I know, Notre Dame has that new quarterback. They sat what's his name, Winbush. Yeah, they sat him. He's not starting, so.
And the other guy threw, 4 or 5 touchdowns last week, I think it was?
Yeah, he had a pretty good game, but the thing is now there's a game of tape, and Stanford will be able to study it. So I'm going with Stanford in this game on the road. Next game is number 20 BYU at number 11 Washington, and this is another one of those ones where we had to pick 25 random teams, so somehow BYU gets in just because they knocked off Wisconsin. So what do you got in this one here?
BYU's look good. I mean, they've knocked out Wisconsin. They beat the crap out of Arizona early on. I think Washington's played good too. They struggled a little bit Saturday night against Arizona State, but were able to pull out that win. I'm going to go Washington.
Yep, that's an easy one for me too. Moving to the SEC, unranked Florida.
Yay.
I know you were looking forward to this one.
God, the best football around.
It's so good. Kentucky plays in that conference. It's clearly the best.
They do, and now they're ranked like number 16 because they beat some other fucking overrated team.
Unranked Florida
Beep.
plays at number 23 Mississippi State. What do you see here?
Man, this is God, do I go with like the crap in my left hand or the crap in my right hand? So I don't know. Like, I've actually been kind of high on Florida this year. They haven't looked as good as I thought they would. I thought they were a team that was actually going to surprise a lot of people this year with the amount of people they have returning from suspension and from play last year, that I thought Florida would look a lot better. So I'm going to go Florida. I've kind of been high on them this year.
Well, that sounds like we've got both of us taking an upset. I refuse to pick anybody from the state of Mississippi to win a football game, so... talent-wise, I think Florida's just a better team, even if they haven't played better this year. Moving back to the Pac-12, number 19 Oregon goes to number 24 Cal for a game in Berkeley. What do you got there?
How the hell is Cal number 24?
Good question. I told you. They literally had to take 24 or 25 teams and say, we're going to rank somebody, so here, you can come in.
God, man, is Aaron Rodgers back?
Marshawn Lynch is back there.
What the hell? Yeah, Cal's running backs on my fantasy team, though, that like Patrick Laird or whatever. So go big on him. But, yeah, Oregon's going to win this. And I think this is going to be like one of those games where like Oregon wins by like 30.
And they look like, look better because whatever uniform it is, it's going to be better than a blue and gold combination. So, yeah, we're taking Oregon there. All right, the game that everybody's listening for and wants the real prediction on, I'm pretty sure I know you're going to go with the home team here. Number 4, Ohio State travels to number 9, Penn State. What do you got?
Man, I've been struggling with the score all day. I mean, of course, Ohio State's going to win.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen. I just feel like there's no way Penn State can stop this Ohio State offense. I don't think they have the offense to kind of keep the Buckeyes off balance like TCU did. I am going to go Ohio State. I'm going to go Ohio State 58, Penn State. Let's do Penn State 38.
All right.
And I think that'll be a late touchdown by Ohio State to kind of put it up that big.
Okay. Going extra bold on your predictions here, I see. I like it.
Yep.
On this game, I'll be honest with you. I've flip-flopped a little bit. Obviously, I think Ohio State wins this game. I've said it all year. I said it in Adam's piece at the beginning of the year. I've said it to you guys. I've said it on the podcast. I'm not sure that Ohio State is undefeated at the end of the year just because going undefeated is very hard. But every time I look at the schedule and every week I look at the schedule moving forward again, I still don't see where that Ohio State loss comes from. I think Penn State will obviously be the best team Ohio State's played all year, potentially the best team that they do play until the playoffs. I mean, I don't know that anybody else on the schedule is going to be as good as Penn State is, but I don't think Penn State is in that top 4 or 5 teams that are the true elite teams in college football this season. So I think Ohio State wins this game. As far as a final score prediction, I've kind of been flipping back and forth. I know Ohio State's about a 3 or 4 point favorite right now. I don't think that that's going to be as close as what Vegas is saying, but obviously if I was as good as Vegas, I'd be opening up my own casino. I can see this one being a 10 or 12 point win or even more. What I do see is Ohio State's offense being able to just outpace Penn State. So that being said, I'm actually going to go 63-48 Ohio State. And I do see Penn State putting up a lot of points. So
what we're saying is definitely go with the over.
Yes, whatever the over is, go with it.
I'm not sure what the over-under is at, but I'm going to go with the over.
Yes, and bet all of my internet monies. I don't have any real monies, so I'll bet my internet monies on it. All right, man, so we've got our Schmidt picks in. We've got our predictions. Everything's good to go. Last chance, anything you want to say about Penn State besides how much they suck and we hate them?
I just really don't like Penn State, and they're not our rival, and quit trying to make it a thing. And, yeah, I don't like you.
Okay. That's plain and simple to the point. It's what I like. All right, brother. In that case, we'll wrap this one all up. We'll kick it over to post-production here in just a little bit. This will be obviously it'll go live late Wednesday night if you're subscribed to us on iTunes or Google Play or TuneIn or Spotify or Spreaker or whatever app it is you use. You'll see that there first thing when you wake up Thursday morning. So when you go work out, you'll have us in your ear. Thursday mid-morning, obviously, the post will be up on the Ozone. We'll have that all taken care of. Make sure you're checking out the Hayes and Cannon tab on the ozone.net. I know myself, Chip Minnick, Mike Citro, when he's not busy taking care of family stuff, Brandon Zimmerman. There's a handful of us, Adam Borland, that are all on there. Put out a lot of good content there. Obviously, the Ozone is known for being the Ozone, so you know that's all there. Lastly, the Ozone Radio Network has all the shows that we talked about earlier. Sons of Schmidt, Silver Bullets, Across the Field, and the Buckeye Sloopcast. You're definitely going to want to see all those or hear all those. So give us a listen, and we'll wrap this one up. So go Bucks. OH.
I-O.
episodes from the Sons of Schmidt podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sons of Schmidt. You can follow us on Twitter at Sons of Schmidt, or email the show, sonsofschmidt@gmail.com. And look for us on Hayes and Cannon at theozone.net.